September 24th, 2014. Its first interplanetary journey to Mars. In its very first attempt. 300 days, over 650 million kilometers. And it all comes down to this. Will India's Mars orbiter, or Mangalyaaan, successfully enter the Martian orbit? Bengaluru, in southern India, with many of India's space centers located here. India's adventure to Mars began in 2012, when Indian space scientists put forward an ambitious plan to send an orbiter to Mars. This would be India's first interplanetary journey, and if successful, it would be the fourth space agency in the world and the first Asian country to reach Mars. So in 2013, India put their plan into action to send an orbiter to Mars. ISRO scientists chose the PSLV as a launch vehicle, as it is one of India's most reliable rockets. ISRO centers in Bengaluru designed, built and tested Mangalyaaan. Ahmedabad engineered its camera and scientific instruments. Sriharikota would be its launch center. The deep space antenna in Byalalu would track communication. And the mission control room back in Bengaluru would monitor and navigate it. Mangalyaan's dream team had veteran space scientists who had worked on many of India's satellite missions over 3 to 4 decades. K. Radhakrishnan, Chairman ISRO at the time of launch, is the man at the helm of India's mission to Mars. A.S. Kiran Kumar had to analyze hundreds of worst-case scenarios. His big concern was how fuel would be used. M. Annadurei's experience heading India's first moon mission, Chandrayaan-1, would help in designing an economical Mars mission. S. Arunan's biggest challenge was to build an intelligent craft that was autonomous or one that could largely function on its own. Mangalyaan is finally sent into an elliptical orbit around Earth.
Very, very accurate orbit we have achieved.
After a successful launch, Mangalyaan has been put on an elliptical orbit around Earth. Over the next 25 days, scientists will fire up Mangalyaan's engine 6 times to raise the orbit and increase its velocity high enough so it can escape Earth's sphere of influence. Mangalyaan's brain is a highly intelligent system that will allow it to communicate with a mission team from millions of kilometers away and even function on its own. The solar panels will power its brain, but it also has a backup lithium-ion battery. Its high-powered antenna will point towards Earth to be able to send and receive messages. Star sensors and gyroscopes act as navigation aids to keep the orbiter on its precise path. Its 5 instruments will send back scientific information about Mars. Its engine is powered by liquid fuel. It has to use this fuel very carefully. There are no pit stops to refuel during its long, over 650 million kilometer journey. This was one of the biggest concerns for the mission team. The engine is fired up and jettisons Mangalyaan out of Earth's orbit and on its first ever interplanetary journey towards Mars. A new chapter in India's space odyssey has begun. The plan of action is triggered. Mangalyaan reorients to slow down. 5 minutes before ignition, Mangalyaaan passes into the Martian shadow, entering an eclipse. The solar panels do not generate enough power as Mars obstructs sunlight to the orbiter. So Mangalyaaan switches to its lithium-ion battery. At this point, Mangalyaaan is still in line of sight with Earth. The engine fires up, but 4 minutes later, Mangalyaaan goes behind Mars, cutting off all communication with the mission team. It will be over 25 minutes before a signal is received. There is pin-drop silence in the mission control room. Without the signal from Mangalyaaan, teams could only hope that their spacecraft was behaving well and as planned. It seems like the longest wait. The first message from Mangalyaaan comes in. It has successfully entered Mars orbit. This is a landmark moment in India's space program. As Mangalyaaan cruises around Mars in a highly elliptical orbit, it can't wait to show off its cool camera on board. Rare and exciting photographs start pouring in. A full disc picture of Mars, volcanoes, large canyon ranges, water vapor clouds, Phobos, one of the 2 natural moons of Mars. Spacecrafts like NASA's Curiosity rover that are already stationed around Mars welcome Mangalyaaan. Curiosity's Twitter handle posts, "Namaste." And Mangalyaaan replies, "Howdy." The Maven team congratulates ISRO for its Mars arrival. India's orbiter joins the missions studying the red planet. The Indian Space Agency is now the 4th in the world to successfully send a mission to Mars, and the first ever to do this in its maiden attempt. Mangalyaaan was built in a record 15 months on a shoestring budget of $74 million, compared to NASA's Mars orbiter Maven's $670 million. At the time of making this film, Mangalyaaan had completed over 100 orbits around Mars. It continues to send back precious data. The red planet doesn't seem so far after all.